The release of The Devil in Me is less than 1 month away, so let's finally get into the hype for the Season 1 finale of the Dark Pages anthology. In today's video, I want to talk about things that I want to and don't want to see within the new game. All previous Supermassive titles were amazing, with each having their individual strengths, either due to the setting, gameplay, story, characters, or just general quality. Yet, all of the games are far from perfect, with each having their own flaws that may affect the overall enjoyment of the experience. I will now be focusing on 6 things. 3 things that I do not want to see in The Devil in Me, even if they worked in previous releases, and 3 things that I do want to see in The Devil in Me, which may not have just worked, but improved previous releases. Enjoy. I was already thinking about addressing this topic long before writing the script, and long before finding out there is going to be, very likely, a romance in The Devil in Me. Yikes. But still, I think it's a good way to talk about this either way, because one thing that Supermassive has done in every game thus far is implement a romance angle. 3 for Until Dawn and the Quarry, and at least 1 in each of the Dark Pages anthology games. And honestly, most of them are either boring or just a cheap way to give a character a reason to exist or for us to care about them. Characters involved within the romance often only have that going for themselves and nothing else. And that's not just lame, but also not a really exciting thing to follow along. With the knowledge that Mark and Kate are an ex-couple, it will very likely turn into a Rachel-Eric situation where our choices determine whether or not they get back together, which is okay, I guess, but we've seen it before. I am not necessarily against romance plotlines, but there is just much more interesting things to write about. If they really want to focus heavily into another romance again, then actually take the balls and have it be a fully fledged out LGBTQ one. 2 girls or 2 guys, whether it's from the start or they find together throughout the game, it doesn't matter to me. Just do it for real and not that bait you gave us with Ryan and Dylan. It's obvious that the main reason for not fully engaging on the latter is that they would 100% receive backlash and negativity from the primitive part of the player base, but I think it would be an easy and exciting way to finally make a romance interesting again. What do you think? Now, what I do want to see return within The Devil in Me is a better, balanced horror experience. Let me explain. I think we can all agree that the Quarry wasn't scary, right? It had a good atmosphere overall, but ultimately, especially for someone like me that is still quite fresh to playing horror games himself, it felt like a breeze compared to earlier titles like Man of Medan or Little Hope. Those games didn't just have a creepy, intenseful atmosphere all the way through, they also got you good with jump scares. I can barely think of more than one in the Quarry, same for the House of Ashes. Jump scares aren't everything, horror is much more than that, but if well placed and not overdone, they can evaluate the experience of horror media. If you're honest though, one could argue that Man of Medan and Little Hope had too many jump scares, basically repeating the same pattern over and over. That being jump scare into walking, into dialogue, action or exploring, into walking, into jump scare, and repeat. The short runtime really didn't leave enough breathing room for all the jump scares of the 2 games to be as effective as they could have been, while also making the playthrough quite predictable. What I think we can also agree on is that to this date, no Supermassive title has done a better job at balancing the horror than Until Dawn. I was more scared watching someone else play Until Dawn than I was scared playing any of the other titles. The atmosphere and setting is non-stop goosebumps, the jump scares are well placed and effective, and the game just does the best job with its pacing for the most part, switching between action, humor, terror, and choices. Basically, what I want to see for The Devil in Me, especially with a longer runtime than the 3 previous entries, is a good mixture of atmosphere, scares and tension that never underwhelm me, but also don't overwhelm me. I am a horror fan that loves and hates what it does to me. On the one hand, I hate the stress it brings me and the dreadfulness and the goosebumps and whatnot, but on the other hand, that is exactly the spark that ignites enjoyment. Until Dawn remains the horror balanced blueprint by Supermassive, and I really hope that they can reach such level again for The Devil in Me. One of the most important aspects of a fictional story is plot armor. Without it, many things wouldn't work, or we wouldn't get to the point where we want to be. As a matter of fact, plot armor often intervenes with realism, because realism may intervene with the story one is trying to tell. In some works of fiction, it doesn't matter, while in others, it can become a problem, such as for games where our choices are supposed to matter. Supermassive has done a great job in the past with how to balance your mistakes leading to a fatal end, the best example being Man of Medan, where all your characters can die before a grand finale, with the latter being able to happen with several combinations of characters. On the other hand, we have games like Until Dawn, House of Ashes, and the Quarry that more than obviously plot armored characters into certain events so that the events that they wanted to have work. Obviously though, there's a big difference between direct plot armor and logical writing. Logical writing means that the character is simply not in enough danger before certain events happen. The story is written in a way where they can't die because there's nothing to kill them just yet, which seems cheap but is still okay. It's at least logical, and we do need to get a compelling game going in some way. On the other hand, direct plot armor isn't when you fail QTEs or made a wrong choice, and it may lead to something that will affect you negatively later, but should have ultimately led to your character's death if we're being realistic. Again, it's fiction, but there is a line. Until Dawn did a great job with characters like Jessica, Mad or Emily that will die if you fail, same for House of Ashes with Eric and Rachel, or the Quarry with Jacob, Emma or Abigail. Yet you have Mike, with who you can fail literally everything and he will still survive a one-on-one close combat encounter with a Wendigo, which is just illogical. We then also have Jason, Salim and Nick who will always, no matter what, reach the first section of the finale of House of Ashes even if they fail everything in close combat with the vampires. And then we also have Ryan who can also in chapter 5 literally mess up everything and survive a freaking close combat encounter with Silas, who we saw later on is actually ruthless and an efficient killer. Why doesn't he die in that moment? We know why. What I'm trying to say is Supermassive has shown how to do it and how not to do it. Sometimes we need to tweak things to work out for a proper gaming experience, but there's a difference between doing it in a well-written, logical way or just blatantly making someone unkillable, which is making your choices and actions become irrelevant. Basically, what I hope for The Devil in Me is that we will be seeing smart writing and not situations that make me go, wow, my character really should have died here, but we know why they didn't. Really suiting the plot armor discussion, one thing that I really want to see in The Devil in Me is a fully fleshed out early ending. The Quarry kinda had one, where under specific circumstances you won't have playable characters left anymore after chapter 9, due to which chapter 10 literally won't exist, but that's literally like an hour before the ending. Your choices should matter, and receiving a cruel and merciless punishment for failing so drastically is something I really want to be included. I want the player to experience that feeling of incompleteness, realizing that they failed and therefore now won't get to experience a majority of the game unless they try again. Additionally, I want that early ending to be epic, not just a, oh well, everyone is dead now, restart the game now, an actual ending that only happens if everybody died up until that point. What I want to see in The Devil in Me is a true early ending that happens like 4 hours into a game that was promoted to be 7 hours long. An ending that really makes you realize and think, holy shit, I fucked up. The trailers made it look like the killer preparates the corpses of the victims in cruel ways to use them for the next game. Could you imagine that in this early ending, the game is showing all your characters lined up in a room, all modified in a different way, ready to be used as props for the killer's next death game? It would be a horrifying but somewhat satisfying imagery and a great way to tell us that our character's fate truly lies within our choices. In every single game, we were facing a supernatural threat, either as a monster antagonist or as a hallucination, always presented as a twist to a previously thought to be human antagonist. In Until Dawn, Josh and the Wendigo, Medan Playtrough, the pirates and the imaginary monsters. Little Hope is a weird one, in House of Ashes, the Iron Forces and the vampires, even though the latter was already revealed beforehand, and in the Quarry, the Hacketts and the werewolves. And while all of these things worked, I would for once find it really refreshing to have no monsters, no hallucinations, no supernatural anything, but simply have the killer be a human. I wouldn't complain if it does happen, but I would simply enjoy to for once have the horror we are seeing feel somewhat realistic, as we realize it's all done by human beings who will forever be the most terrifying creature on our planet. Again, you won't see me rant if they do it again. The Wendigos are iconic, the hallucinations were cool, the Lope's twist is mind-blowing, the vampires are dope, the werewolves were interesting. It's a signature for Supermassive, so it would make sense to wrap up the finale of Season 1 with something supernatural. But yeah, I would enjoy if we for once let a human being be the real monster. Another subject that Supermassive has already once done amazingly, and not so much. Characters are what makes these games. If you don't care for your character, you won't care for the game. So it's even more important to give the players, once they finish the story, manage to keep characters that they have gotten attached to alive, a post-game ending, scene, sequence, whatever. It gives them closure, reassurance, or the truth. Until Dawn had an amazing police interview, even impacted by our choices. Man of Medan has one depending on how our playthrough went, and it's fine the way it is. The Lobe would see a conclusion without a post-game scene needed, and House of Ashes features a great interrogation, similar to what we saw on Until Dawn. The Quarry was a major step down. The podcast wasn't necessarily terrible. I enjoyed it more than others, but it just wasn't enough. For The Devil in Me, I really hope that there will be a satisfying conclusion to our story and our characters. I don't care if we basically just copy-paste the post ending from Until Dawn. I take another police interview that is influenced by our choices all day. For the Quarry's case, our characters were split for a long time. Characters may have gotten infected and woke up not knowing what happened to them. There was just so much potential for post-game scenes where we saw the group reuniting or another police interrogation happening, but it just didn't happen. It's hard to judge yet whether or not The Devil in Me will even leave so many open questions that truly require a post-game scene to clarify it, but it will be welcome either way. And this is it with today's video. I've showed you 3 things that I don't want to see in The Devil in Me and 3 things that I would really enjoy to see. What about you? Do you agree with the things I said? Do you disagree? What are things that you don't want to and want to see within the new game and Season 1 finale of the Dark Pictures Anthology? Tell me down below in the comments, leave a like if you enjoyed the video, and leave a sub if you want to support me, my content, and my channel. We are obviously going to be playing The Devil in Me when it finally releases on November 18th. Up until then, I think I will be doing a few more The Devil in Me and generally Superman's of Games related videos, and other than that, obviously a lot of other great contents, whether it's gameplay or finally continuing my playthroughs. Currently it's really stressful and I don't even have slightly the amount of time. I don't even upload slightly as much as I would enjoy to, but that's just how it is. Stay safe, have and happy, have a great time, and see you again soon on a new video on my channel. Thanks for watching.